We can all agree that greed, selfishness, conceit, and ego all hinder our ability to live life to the fullest. We have a hard time dealing with these everyday feelings that sometimes process incorrectly and we react in a disappointing manner. Anger and frustration are feelings that can cause us to miss many opportunities in our life. Anger itself can be considered an emotion of selfishness because when we get angry, it's often because someone or something does not act or react the way we wish them to. A spouse gets angry at the other because they want or expect a certain behavior they did not receive. Children get angry at one another because one child expects the other to act or do a certain thing. The United States military gets angry at another country because we expect them to disarm all their nuclear weapons and they did not. Actually, we never have a problem with anyone until they do something we don't like. That's why anger is a selfish emotion. We get angry because we feel as though something wrong has been done by someone else. But to truly understand the situation, why can't we accept someone's individuality to differ from ours and move on to a more loving relationship? Anger and frustration are things we learn when we are young. A baby learns anger when they no longer receive the constant food supply and nurturing that they receive from the womb. As soon as a baby is taken from the womb, they cry. They cry from fear of the unknown and also from a certain feeling that will develop into the feeling that we call anger. When they were in the womb, they were totally surrounded by their mother's love. They were directly connected to their source. Love, nutrients, oxygen, etc., flowed constantly and continually for 9 months until they were disconnected from that source. Once they realize that the connection is no longer there and they have to breathe on their own, they cry. The cycle of crying continues for years as the child learns that anger and frustration can get results. Since they cannot express themselves effectively with words, they learn how to express frustration and anger by crying. Anger in infants is typically displayed with crying because of the inability to connect in any other way. For many years, this cycle continues. Children cry because they feel a lack of something, and that feeling of lack turns into anger and frustration. Not until later in life does a child understand how to change this behavior and possibly use words or actions to communicate effectively. Anger is a learned emotion that centers on one person and it's totally different for each individual. But in infants and toddlers, it is very similar. The feeling of anger in in infants and toddlers is usually a result of a lack of attention, affection, food, sleep, or changing of underpants. As we become older, anger typically results from a clash of wills. A child wants, needs, or thinks he deserves something, and that something is not provided. The child becomes frustrated, and anger ensues. Unfortunately, this pattern continues through adulthood also. Although we don't typically voice the anger as much as a child does with temper tantrums, we still show definite physical symbols to let each other know that we are angry. The cold shoulder technique, the pout, the tears that flow down our cheeks, or the explosion from bottled up anger. When it comes to anger, we all have our share. Now, everyone has an anger sack. Is your sack a snack bag or a hefty bag? We carry around anger all the time. For many of us, our relatives are a constant source of anger. We get mad at our parents or siblings, and we withhold that anger throughout our lives. Sisters can fight for years because of a teenage crush gone bad. Brothers hold in anger for decades over sports achievements and sibling rivalries. Mothers and daughters carry anger into their adulthood over control issues. We tend to withhold anger without realizing the true cost of time and stress we've created. If we didn't carry all that anger, we could have used that time invested in anger to become more intimate with each other. Our relationships with others are key to living a full and complete life. The more anger we have, the more chance you have in burst of your anger sac. This bursting often results in years of damage to relationships and can sometimes lead to poor health or even death. Medical professionals say that we can relieve stress with a good diet and exercise or meditation. A lot of our everyday stress is because we are dealing with anger as well. We stress about our jobs because we get angry at our boss or coworkers and do not know how to alleviate the anger effectively. Teenagers stress about peer pressure and often get angry at themselves for not knowing how to talk or be cool as others. They also get angry because their parents can't afford the nice things that the cool kids have. I often got angry at myself because I couldn't seem to lose that extra weight that the other kids teased me about. The angry feelings that fester in our childhood often leak into our adult lives in a way that we brand ourselves into certain ways of thinking. Sometimes we even pass down these ways of anger into the minds of our children. A parent can pass their anger at another parent into the child. Children of divorce often have this happen to them. Now, exercise can alleviate the symptoms of anger and stress, but often the cause is still there. It takes a change in our minds to remedy the problem. We should not focus so much on what made us angry. We should focus more on why it made us angry and deal with that issue. The fact is, when you get angry, you get further away from someone. Anger creates distance, a distance that takes more effort to decrease than increase. Getting angry at someone or something is the easy way out. It is truly more difficult to not get angry than to become angry. You deal with true inner emotions and become more Christ-like when you learn to brush off anger. Collectively, we've not done a very good job of brushing off anger. We channel our anger into wars, family feuds, crime, divorce, and broken relationships. We embrace anger as entertainment in our movies and television. We take the easy way out and blame others for our anger. For those who base their beliefs on the teachings of the Bible, we need to realize that if God was an angry God, we would all probably be dead. Why would God let us exist when we do so many things against His will? The earth can be destroyed just as easily as it was created. In some ways, we are destroying the earth little by little ourselves without God's help. Jesus did not promote anger. He promoted forgiveness to a world filled with anger. We have been angry for so long that it's an instant reaction for us. We do not forgive readily and believe revenge is a necessary part of life. We attack other countries that we feel have done injustices to us or others. We execute our criminals. We rob others we feel have more than us. And we even do small-minded things such as hurting others that have hurt us in the past. One way we have done that is by using the punishment of stoning. This ritual was documented in many ancient texts as a way of punishment for crimes against humanity. I think of it a little differently. Stoning was a way of releasing other fits of anger on someone. Often the people who were doing the stoning were not associated with the crime. In some ways, they channeled feelings of anger from past events in their life in order to project the anger onto someone else. It was therapeutic to some who had no other way to let out some of all their anger. We all often channel our anger onto unsuspecting individuals. We shout at our spouses for small disagreements. We use finger gestures at the person that cuts us off in traffic, even if they did not even realize what they did. And we spank our children out of anger sometimes instead of out of love. Sometimes spanking is anger and frustration dealt with incorrectly. Spanking typically is the easy way out. It is a way to introduce fear and violence into a child. A child who is spanked may learn to fear their parents and not necessarily respect them as most parents think. I remember an elementary school friend whose father often spanked him out of anger. 30 years later, he still has issues with intimacy because of what his father did and the fear he had growing up to the backhand of his father instead of the embrace of a loving dad. I understand that many people quote the Bible, spare the rod and spoil the child, but has that person realized the degree of self-control and nurturing it takes to give an effective spanking? A spanking should be the result of an agreement of both individuals realizing a need for a change of behavior. Spanking should not result in separation, intense physical pain, or resentment. Too many parents put too much focus on the physical pain and not enough focus on the emotional pain they inflict on their children. Our God is not an angry God who punishes us with great might and then leaves us to deal with life afterward on our own. Our anger is what delays our flow of goodness in this world. Our anger is what drives our crime. It drives our rage against each other. It drives us to neglect others' feelings. And our anger is what limits us. One of the greatest quotes I have ever heard about anger was spoken by Minister Ellen Davenport, who once stated, "You never have to forgive anyone if you do not judge them in the first place." You may want to revisit that statement again. We need to truly understand why we truly feel anger. Like I stated earlier, we learn anger as infants and continue throughout our lives. Most of us go through life not realizing that anger truly hurts us more than it ever could hurt anyone else. When you get angry, you stop your flow of love. You stop the most wonderful gift ever given to man, love. You cannot love someone and be angry at the same time. Love is a continual flow of happiness that should not be tainted. When we get angry, we taint the feelings of love. We dam up the river of goodness. And the quicker the temper, the faster you shut off your good. If you want to continue to be blessed, to be successful in your ventures, to receive all that God has in store for you, you must learn to forgive. You must learn to be slow to anger and quick to forgive. A proven method at being slow to anger is to not judge at all. We seem to get angry at things that have no effect on our connection with God whatsoever. We get mad with traffic, with our spouses, with our children, with our boss, with our neighbors, etc., and they have nothing to do with your blessings. If you have a true and clear connection with God, outside circumstances will stay outside your flow. Realize that the people around you serve as distractions. They distract you from whatever your intentions are. These distractions can help you get to your goal, or they can help slow down the process. Sometimes we get mad when at people when they do not follow the path we have chosen in our lives. A wife gets angry at her husband for not taking out the trash. In her path, the trash should have been taken out at a certain time of day, and if it's not done that way, then it is considered wrong. A secretary gets mad at her boss because she feels she was hired for 40 hours per week. She completed her 40 hours, and his request for Saturday work to catch up is unreasonable to her. She had plans to sleep on Saturday morning. Her path for Saturday was already chosen until a distraction sprung up. We get angry only when we judge a person or situation to be wrong. We must realize that what we believe to be just and correct may differ from every single other person on this planet. We learn to judge others mainly from our friends, family, and the media. Our parents tell us not to play with the kids across the street because they don't act properly. What do our parents consider to be proper? This is the judgment of another person. The kid across the street could possibly benefit from someone going over to play with them. They may be in a situation where a little attention from a kind spirit could make a turnaround in their lives. Now, I remember in junior high, a friend who was new to our neighborhood and was just really shy. He said he was from New York and he didn't know many people. I befriended him and we began a pretty good friendship. We would often walk home together and visit each other after school and on the weekends. He was welcome into my circle of friends, but never latched onto my other friends because of his personality. I showed him a non-judgmental kindness, and he began to open up more and discuss his family situation. He didn't have the typical setup. His father was gone for long periods of time as a high-ranking intelligence officer, and his mother, I believe, was a stay-at-home mom. He was the kind of person that was highly influenced by others, and as we approached our high school years, I moved on to a different school across town. We drifted apart for the next couple of years, and I heard from my friends that he began to run with a group of people who had similar family situations as his. His behavior changed dramatically from what I remember, and it led to horrible consequences. His bottled up anger at his family situation resulted in the death of both of his parents in the home I often visited. He took the lives of his parents in a desperate attempt to find a better life. His anger and rage were not dealt with properly, and I feel he no longer had anyone that gave him a kind spirit and let him communicate his feelings. This was a truly shocking turn of events, and the circumstances surrounding the incident scarred me for a while. I realized that some people need that human bond, if just to connect and learn how to deal with all the anger inside of them. I wish he had more people around him to help him deal with all the issues. People judged him all the time that I knew him. He was often ridiculed because he was shy and because he wasn't good at sports. I think I accepted him because I felt a need for him to connect. Sometimes we lose focus as children and want to gravitate towards the people that seem to have everything in place. I've learned that you don't learn much about life from cookie cutter people. I have always valued friendships, and my friendships with the misfits, the geeks, the nerds, or the loners of society. I have seen those individuals grow up to be wonderful, loving people who value life and grow spiritually as well. Typically, the cookie cutter crew grows up with a need to impress others. They have to keep up with the false image of what perfection is according to society. They seem to push themselves harder in order to achieve unrealistic perfection. They are often the lonely, jealous of others, and angry at themselves for not realizing what true happiness is. When parents try to steer their children away from certain children, they are limiting their child's experience. I always thought it was a bad thing that my parents didn't get involved in my choices of friends. But now I see they trusted me to selectively choose who I wanted to be around. I remember befriending several people that my closest friends mocked or laughed at. I guess I learned at an early age to accept people for who they are. Income, race, religion, background, etc. doesn't override love and acceptance. I never read any testaments of Jesus refusing someone because of their differences. Jesus resides in all of us. If we were taken to a remote island without any contact besides another person who was considered an outcast, I believe we could find a way to develop a relationship with them. I truly believe that the most influential people on earth are the ones who are considered different from the norm. When we limit ourselves by only accepting people that are considered normal, it truly shows a lack of diversity, acceptance, and character. If you can go through life without judging anyone, then you truly have the Spirit of God within. Many times you see the opposite when ministers talk about how their religion doesn't include certain lifestyles. If Jesus himself did not discriminate, why should a church that is supposed to be based on Jesus' example? We get angry at other choices of lifestyle. Why? Their lifestyle should not destroy your ability to connect with God. You should accept everyone as you have been accepted by God. Why condemn others for their choices? You are only responsible for your choices in this world. Let others be. What others choose will lead them down their own path. You do not have to follow, so why get angry about it? We all need to drop the rocks. Stop throwing rocks at all the things that differ from you. Stop trying to punish others for taking a different pathway. If someone does not follow your lead, then you'll have a lot fewer bags to carry. We need to learn to leave people alone and focus on making better choices and better decisions for ourselves. Our anger is damaging to our souls. Most of us do not realize that anger hurts ourselves more than it hurts the person we are actually angry at. We get angry at someone or something, we hold that anger for an amount of time, and do not realize that we can't be happy while we are angry. As we hold that anger, we're using precious time and energy channeling that anger on this subject. Most of the time, the subject we're angry at couldn't care less. They have won the battle your anger started. While you waste away your life in anger, life goes on as usual for them. You can spend decades being angry at an old girlfriend who stole your boyfriend. Your anger has lasted for decades. If you settle that anger at the point of conflict, you could have saved yourself years of negative energy and possibly maintain a friendship that could have benefited you both. I'm not saying to just become a pushover for everyone. Learn to understand that people are just humans. We all make damaging decisions every day. Realize that what's done is done. Keep living your life. If someone does something bad to you, understand that that shows a limit in their beliefs. It is about them and not you. If someone spreads a nasty rumor about you, it is because they lack the integrity to discuss an issue that bothers them. If a spouse cheats on the other, it is because they have a flaw in understanding what a true relationship is. When a government allows genocide to continue in their country, there are many people who run their country that have a lack of understanding. We should not get angry. We should accept the fact that this person or persons have made their choice in life, and we can now acknowledge that their path does not coincide with ours. You can't unscramble eggs. When people make a mess of a situation, realize that they chose to get that result. Our job is to offer solutions, pray for them, and project positive energy to help others realize a possibly better solution the next time. There truly is no need for anger. The angry emotion is a human developed emotion to distract and hinder our happiness. We have made anger a habitual reaction to life's everyday occurrences. Try to notice those who are slow to anger. Notice how monks remain in a state of happiness with their God, even though they may be treated unfairly. Notice how nonviolent protesters continue projecting peace for warring nations. Notice how abused children still yearn for nurturing relationships from their abuser. And notice how a marriage can be mended from infidelity with a shift in consciousness from the one who strayed. Our minds have the ability to totally change our view of life. No matter how angry we get, we have the ability to let it go. We have to just have the effort to do whatever we normally do not do well as humans, which is forgive. Most of us do not truly forgive ourselves. We all have been taught that forgiveness is something you do for others. I often hear that people that are angry with someone else tend to forgive that person. When you forgive, it is for you. You are the one who has judged the other person as wrong. Sometimes we judge the other person incorrectly and then get angry for the wrong reason, and then we think we have to forgive them. Forgiveness is an act that allows us to dismiss anger or resentment and move on. No matter how angry you are, you can forgive and let it go. We spend too much energy remaining angry. We give too much of our power remaining in a state of anger and bitterness. We waste too much of our precious time here on earth walking around with closed hearts and clenched fists. You can't receive what's thrown your way with a clenched fist. Recently, I had an experience where I felt I was wrong. A coworker ended up with a customer I worked with previously. She ended up completing the sale and earning the commission on what I felt was my deal. I reacted with anger, confronted the individual, and had a poor choice of words with her. After the incident, I realized that even though I felt she did an injustice to me, I may not have all the facts before I reacted. I felt as though she needed to be punished for taking my customers. My feelings centered around revenge and anger instead of forgiveness and love. In fact, why would I even think of forgiveness or love in that situation? Clearly, she was in the wrong, right? It was my customer who I just worked with the day before. What gives her the right to think she can take my commission away from my family just so she could have a sale? Well, sometimes we get fed up with people who believe they can just run over us and not pay the consequences. I try to be nice all the time. I try to consider others' feelings all the time. I work extra hard to keep the peace in all situations. Yet this time it was personal. She has been known to take customers from other people before, and this time she will pay the consequences for her actions. Hmm. This must be what a vengeful God must feel like when people disobey his commands. Unfortunately, I am not a God. I am not the judge. I am not the person who punishes the wrong here on this earth. I was created by love, from love, to love. I am made in God's image. My image of God is not punishment and vengeance. My image of God is based on love. God is love and love is God. There is no difference. A loving God would not harbor thoughts of payback or revenge. Why should I feel the need to punish this individual who felt they were doing something to their betterment? If I truly understood and reacted in a loving way, all I would have done is advise her that I didn't agree with the fact that she took my customer and left it at that. As I stated earlier, you can unscramble eggs. My getting mad at the situation doesn't help anything. I cannot solve any problems with my anger. What I could have done is address her and let her know that I didn't like the situation and move on to the next customer. This is not getting run over by her. It is not being a coward and backing down. It is not being a doormat for her to step on. Reacting in this way is the boldest stand you can make. It is trusting that the universe will give you what you need and that there is enough for everyone. The universe operates on balance. If something is taken from you, you must believe that something else will be given. When you forgive, you let go of what you felt was wrong. You realize the fact that you judge someone's actions as being wrong and acknowledge the fact that there will be something else for you. When you truly adopt this belief in your everyday life, you live in a state of peace. Every event in your life becomes a learning experience. Some events show you that at an instance you may not be connected to the universe and may need to adjust your thoughts. Other events show that you are truly aligned with the universe and you are now receiving all of what life has to offer. Forgiveness allows you to get back on track. You only forgive after you have judged. Most judgments are only based on what we personally feel is wrong or right. How can we judge that everyone else is wrong? We are all entitled to our own opinions, and we tend to gravitate toward others of the same opinion as ours. That is how we get our opinions and form our communities. We then learn to get angry at others for having a different view. That anger is where the problem lies. Our anger defeats us mentally and spiritually. In order for us to grow, we need to remember when things are hot, look for the shade.